Hello, Sparklocateers, and well, I've got some great news for you guys. Liana Kerzner has confirmed the breach of the Kickstarter funds. Not in the way that she probably was expecting, because I don't think she realized what she did, but let's take a look at some of these screenshots because there's a lot of juicy stuff here, but let's take a look at that for just 1 second. Just take that view in. It's beautiful. It's like if Monet painted with ketchup and mustard, just smears all over the place, right? But there's something here, just like in those magic eye pictures, not something that immediately would jump out at you. Allow me to read the skeet to you and see if anything clicks. Maybe even other shitty people think the latest attack against me went too far, seeing it as a reference that a close relative might be dying in them, and your complaint is that someone made a mistake that was fixed at a time like that. You are so disgusting that you didn't see what was wrong. Alright, so a visit to the magical land of Hyperbolia aside, Liana is of course talking about the screenshot where she's telling me that Steven took $3,000 from the Kickstarter campaign and she read the riot act to him. She confirmed to me that Steven should not have had access to that money and that in her own words, an additional firewall needed to be put in place. Now, why would a firewall be needed if it was a mistake? But more importantly, throughout this time, Liana has been denying that the screenshots were real. She has done her best boomer-level arguments against the screenshots to the point that she shows she doesn't even know how Telegram works despite using it for 6 years. But suddenly, not only are the screenshots real because they have verifiable biographical information vis-a-vis Steven's mother being in a coma at the time, which is unfortunate. Steven's mother's situation at that point is a separate issue, unless Liana is trying to make the argument that Steven accessed the money in connection to his mother's condition, which I don't think is what she's trying to imply. So I'm going to treat that as a separate issue. A very unfortunate one, but nevertheless separate. After all, Liana seems to think along those same lines. When she released that very inaccurate and defamatory cancellation video, my Aunt Gilda was dying from stage 4 cancer, my Uncle Carlos was also dying, and our friend Nana, whom we love dearly, was also dying. And my husband was still undergoing electroconvulsive therapy. Liana didn't seem to care about any of those things, which she knew were going on at the time, but that seems to be part of the Kerzner asymmetry, isn't it? Anything that happens to them is the greatest tragedy in the world and an exoneration from all consequence, be it family tragedy or alleged trauma response. Anything that happens to other people, oh well, just get over it, right? You're an adult and you're responsible for your own responses to things and you have to own up to them, right? But aside from the corroboration that the chat is legitimate due to the verifiable biographical detail, we have this very interesting rephrasing. Liana, in her early zeal, initially kept denying the event, alluding to the chats not being real, had ever happened. And she claimed that the chats had been edited because the green background was missing, oh my god, and that it was defamatory material. Defamation is something that is not real, so is not true. But now, suddenly, it's a magical reframe, boys and girls and non-binary friends. Suddenly, well, it's a mistake. So, you need to pay close attention or you'll miss how the trick is done. The chat that wasn't a chat wasn't real, but if it was, it confirms nothing. But if it did, it was a mistake. That never happened, but which allegedly was swiftly fixed, though it didn't happen. And if it did, it wasn't an issue. But if it was an issue, it wasn't a big deal. And if it was, misogyny, terrible, gingerphobia, transphobia, victim blaming, help support this channel, become a monthly patron. Ta-da! So, is your card the 10 of gingerphobia? How about the ace of misogyny? Or maybe it's the Joker, so it can be about whatever Liana wants it to be instead of the actual issue at hand. So how can you fix something that never happened? There you go. Liana Kerzner just confirmed that Steven Kerzner did in fact access those $3,000 because if the chat wasn't real, how did I know about this? Liana was the fiduciary officer and I had no access to any bank account. The records will verify that, so if she feels the need to reframe it as a mistake now, that's because she's very afraid that should it get to any level of scrutiny and the ledgers are looked into, it will reveal that my report is factual. Her own verbiage in the chat indicates that this was not a mistake, because otherwise, what do you need a firewall for? You keep firewalls to keep intruders out, so who is it for? Is her bank account being monitored by the CIA because she's a dangerous extremist? I don't think so. The only machine Liana Kerzner ever raged against is a dishwasher. Something that you need to keep an eye out for, insofar as Liana Kerzner goes, is this. Because it's like so many things that I have already pointed out, which is cyclical and pathological. Anytime someone catches Liana Kerzner in a lie or a contradiction with strong evidence, she will explode in public and will raise the stakes and escalate. Usually in a way to pull away from the subject of the lie or contradiction so that she hopefully never has to address it ever again. This usually takes the form of blame shifting or unrelated personal disclosures or mental health stigma, such as, Kim Crawley, Emily Schooley, Gail Simone, etc. Think about the video I made back in October. I exposed a few things there. The first thing I exposed was her false claim that she had accused Asher of transphobia in the Very Ugly Fight and that Asher exploded about it. When I showed that no, they never talked about that, and that her story kept changing, well, she didn't like that. And then I provided the context that she dropped when she implied in her survey that I was a name-dropping narcissist because I mentioned that I had offered her the chance to come to the 30th anniversary of the Ultima Dragons and potentially meet Richard Garriott in a social setting because she had absolutely bombed her interview with him. Someone in her server asked if I really even knew these people. And Leanna went, "Oh, I don't know. I just said how cool when he mentioned the Ultima Dragons to let him feel important." And as an aside, that has to be the most egomaniacal answer anyone can give, and is a far more in tune with what she's accusing me of, because she implied that I would feel important from that. She tacitly dropped her own name as a person capable of conferring important status. And it's amazing because her server just did a slow blink and went, "Sure thing, boss, that makes sense." Because, well, there's several things that are just fucked up with that. And for the kids at home in Leanna's server, you guys are roadkill in her tracks, because let me explain something to you. What she did to me there in front of your very eyes is essentially a signal that at any point, at any single point, that any of you pisses her off, you're going to be rewritten like that. And it advertises that she is someone who will tell you whatever she thinks that you need to hear so that you do whatever she wants you to do, but she doesn't really mean it. Excuse me? Like, nani la chingada? How can anyone in that server look at that exchange, look at that confession and go, "Oh yeah, sure, Liana's an honest person. No red flags coming up here." Like, what are you smoking? Because I want some of that. It's like her public is stuck in Groundhog Day and today is the only day that ever exists and everything else is forgotten. So when I posted that in the video and pointed to the sheer hypocrisy of it, Leanna realized that, oh shit, someone had put two and two together for these people who never do it. And that's why she went on Twitter over a minor set of revelations, comparatively speaking, and did a whole amount of personal disclosures that were not apropos. But if you look at the exchange, you'll see how much of those tweets are geared towards shame. But not just any kind of shame, but social shame, normative shame. Talking about my Second Life boyfriends. If you read some of them, it looks like they were written by Mrs. Kravitz from Bewitched with the judge's look on her face. You can just see the raisins in her potato salad and paprika on her lime jello. Anytime anyone catches her in a contradiction or a lie, she explodes and offloads like that. She will escalate. When that explosion didn't work, we kept on going. So then, when Leanna conveniently got a death threat, she broadcasted that death threat on her social medias and very much linked it to my husband. I need to point out that this woman is allegedly a journalist who is aware of the dangers, both legal and ethical, of citing material that is not a primary source and without primary source verification, and then trying to pass that material off as authentic. That is a major ethics violation and massively negligent. Brief background. I took journalism classes as some of the requirements when I studied psychology. And yes, I completed 4 years of psychology before I switched over to opera. So I know about source attribution and source verification. I was made Presidential International Research Fellow when I was doing my master's work at the university. I know my shit that well. Leanna and her entire approach throughout all of this has been one of massive negligence. Not just massive negligence, but massive negligence with the purpose of endangering an at-risk individual. Because Asher, again, is an at-risk individual. He is mentally ill. So here is a woman who has a modest-sized platform and in a comfortable position, reading a death threat while doing massive gyrations of her eyes in Asher's direction, implying that he's the one who sent them. And that didn't shut us up on YouTube. She went on the radio, on her It's Not Therapy farce of a program, and read an anonymous email that she immediately implied it must come from his spouse, and then proceeded to read things about my social media account. And in that same episode, she made us into an example because of her great munificence and how much money she had lent us and how much of a lost cause we were. And all of this based on an anonymous message impersonating me, whose source she couldn't verify. The ethical journalist. She's like Andy Anderson cosplaying as Lois Lane. It doesn't seem like Leanna got the message that how to lose a guy was a fantasy, not real life. And then, of course, to triple the hypocrisy, she then claimed that the episode was not about us at all. Who are you going to believe, her words or her lying words? Is there really a difference? She often says, oh, if you see yourself in what I discuss, it's because it's the darkness in your soul that's calling out to you. What in the Regina George tank top is this? But saying that over the radio didn't shut us up. What has she done now that she has seen actual released evidence, well-sourced evidence? She has endangered Asher further. Asher made a post observing that everything was crickets as soon as we released the evidence. This is a direct allusion to the critics section in my website, talking about the very suspicious activity of allegedly stalker accounts like Trans Truth Teller, Jimmy Linguini, Ed the Suck, and then Genta Great, who claim to be critics of Liana but never release any actual hard-hitting evidence of their claims. And Liana always says that these accounts are owned by Emily Schooley. But the actual behavior of the accounts and their impact suggests that they exist solely to discredit anyone leveraging credible claims against the Kerzners by echoing those claims in the most sensationalist of ways, tarnishing the accusations by association, a poisoning of the well. So when Asher made a point observing this, where was everyone? Liana said that Asher was complaining that he didn't cause chaos and that it was, according to her, an alleged confession from Asher of an intent to harm her. That is a legally weighty statement, one with repercussions, and should she repeat it again, we will see that those legal consequences are explored because that is an accusation of criminal confession that she has imputed into Asher. Once again, by taking words that he wrote and shoving it through her Humpty Dumpty filter to mean whatever it is that she wants it to mean. A reinterpretation of those words vomited out into her social media and presented as fact. People won't look at the words that Asher wrote. They will remember the words that Liana Kerzner, peer counselor, alleged journalist, and the spouse of a celebrity sock, said. Those are the words people will remember, and those are the words that will shape public opinion of Asher. And all of this, why? Because Stephen Joel Kerzner accessed funds from a Kickstarter campaign that he did not have authorization to do. Liana's very attitude indicates that it was not a mistake. I hate going to Starbucks in the morning and accidentally taking $3,000 out of my husband's account. Like, who hasn't done that, right? No, it's not a mistake. It's ridiculous. It's abjectly, patently ridiculous. But the Kerzners are ridiculous people. Unfortunately, the problem is that because they are legacy media, they have enough of a wide reach and enough of a brainless following that they can harm people. Just like Liana harms people who put themselves in her care as a peer counselor, banking on her gamer and geek credits, not realizing that she is deeply unqualified. When they piss her off, she blabs their personal details and mental health details and even their real-life identity to friends in retaliation. She will drag her ex-clients that piss her off, like Song, in front of her Discord server full of kind advocates, and then they will all join in speculation on how much of their trauma was a con or a swindle. That is the problem. That is what Liana is trying to distract all of you from with this poor, frail female endangered by crazy person act. To this day, there are several issues and questions that Liana Kerzner needs to answer. Did Stephen Joel Kerzner access the funds of a Kickstarter when he had no authorization to do so and no legal right to do so? Did she betray the social media links, real-life identity, mental health struggles, childhood details, and family situation of Mitchell Jura, an ex-Liana Kerzner client, to a friend? Did she share the private screenshots of a private conversation from the user known as Giant Enemy Crab, who is a Liana Kerzner client at the time and who was asking for an emergency session over Christmas? And the thing to think about is, if these things have happened and are documented instances, how often are they happening all around? Because if you think that she's not sharing shit with Eileen or Bobby in that server, well, I got a bridge to sell you. But the circus that's coming to town is Liana banging those cymbals and doing those pirouettes and anything to distract you from the core issues. Once again, Liana Kerzner pointed to the quote crazy person in the room, my husband, and blamed him for everything. She blamed him for the delays that led to the cancellation of the game exclusively, while never mentioning her husband's mental health issues that caused her delays in the game. She then accused him of the anonymous messages that she was receiving, even though she knows, and the transcripts show it, that she has been aware of a local man trying to harm Asher for years who has resorted to impersonation multiple times, who was motivated by her defamatory cancellation video. Kerzner, in fact, constantly rewrites the words of mentally ill individuals. She claims that Asher says or writes words that the record shows aren't there. Just like the issue with the blog post that she harps on about. All Asher wrote in his blog, talking about a past childhood trauma, was that he had sexual violence as a one-time event in his childhood. In those words, and Kerzner since then has relished in providing inaccurate details of the traumatic experience to her server and social media multiple times while claiming that that's what Asher wrote. You can read the article for yourself that what she describes is nowhere to be seen in the 70-ish words about the subject in a many thousand word article. Mentally ill people are just a prop to Liana Kerzner. So is everybody else. But mentally ill people are especially disposable. And anyone who gets in her way is marked for destruction, one way or another. And it doesn't have to be this way. People really need to start speaking up and pointing out all of this because she's banking on the Victim Act to stave off accountability while actually victimizing people. And remember, anything she says to you might be said just to let you feel important. That's trustworthy, right? Stick around. I hope you have a good Thursday.